Welcome back to another episode of Moving Fort Wayne. I'm here with my buddy Jamie Miller from Gold Key. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Overall, I mean, we use Gold Key for most of our home inspections that we do throughout the year. Do you know how many home inspections you guys have done as a company?
Lifetime?
Yeah.
It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 27,000.
27,000. I can't even get 27,000 steps in a day, let alone how many home inspections you guys have done. So you
Yeah.
are hearing from the authority on home inspections here. There's a lot of great home inspectors in the Midwest and in the state of Indiana, but somebody that we've come to rely on and trust is Jamie, you and your team at Gold Key. Today we're talking about what's dominating the headlines in Northeast Indiana, and it's the weather temperatures. Today I'm looking out my window and it's 80 degrees and sunny, perfect day for some golf if I didn't have a bunch of appointments today. But a week ago it was freezing rain and cold, and we want to talk about how temperature differentials kind of play a part in helping people become confident homeowners and what to look for. So today's big topic is mold, mildew, humidity, and temperature differentiators in a home. So first and foremost, let's talk about mold. It's a scary thing. What can you tell the listeners about mold in general?
Yeah, well, first to distinguish between mold and mildew. Mildew grows on plants. It needs the enzymes in living plants to thrive. And so everything else is mold. People will say, "Oh, I have mildew on my shower wall."
Yep.
No, you don't. You have mold. Mildew grows on living things. Mold grows on living things and everything else. But as far as being a homeowner this type of year or this time of year, one of the big enemies of a house is the climate. That's why you need maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you need maintenance inspections, because the extremes in temperature shrink things, and they expand and shrink and expand. And then you get loose flashing, you get loose this and loose that. Water can sneak in, and then you can have issues that you didn't do anything. You didn't notice any damage, but something's happening that you're unaware of. You get moisture, and that can lead to mold problems that can go undetected really for several years if they're small enough,
Yeah.
as far as a moisture entry topic.
So what does mold need to grow?
Mold needs three things to grow: air, water, and food. And so we can't take the air away because we need air to breathe. We, in many cases, cannot take the food away because that's just building materials, drywall, paper, wood, that kind of cellulose, that kind of thing. So what we can deal with is the water, the moisture issue. This time of year, as you mentioned, we're building humidity. Humidity can go from, what it was when it's cold at 40, 50% to 80, 90%. And so humidity, especially in the lower levels of the home, has a significant effect because now we have condensation. Elevated humidity, just above 50%, really starts to uh, allow mold to thrive with the normal temperatures that you would have in a house and to settle on building materials, on walls, on countertops, tops of window ledges, wherever. And so one thing that is a factor in controlling mold in your home is you need to keep it clean, because one of the foods that molds love is dust. And so
Oh,
dusty your home is. That's why there's a lot of companies out there that promote mold testing. It's a dust test, and I don't agree with these tests. They have the reasons for doing and promoting it, but basically you're swabbing different areas of dust in your home and sending it into this company, and they analyze it for mold. Because yes, you will have mold eating dust. That doesn't mean it's actively reproducing and getting into the air. It just means that's what you have in the dust. So that's the most likely scenario with humidity, with elevated humidity. Crawl spaces, we go into those areas, and that's going to be the most likely area where you see it. Number one, nobody goes in there. And number two, various factors contribute. You could have moisture coming in through the walls, so you have elevated moisture that way. And then it's just stagnant air and nothing's moving it out. And so that can create fuzzy stuff starting to grow on the wood. High enough moisture, and your wood itself starts getting an elevated moisture content. When wood gets above roughly around 14% moisture content, it actively promotes mold growth. And so we
Wow.
want to keep the overall humidity down. Now, if you have 70% humidity in your crawl space, it doesn't mean you're going to have 70% humidity in the wood, but the wood does absorb it based on the amount of airflow that you got going through there or lack of. And so that's why we want to keep the humidity down, and that will keep the moisture content of the wood down and discourage rapid mold growth.
I feel like as I'm listening to this, as a homeowner, I'm thinking a couple things. Do you think we talk about weather and mold and mildew growth and in this case, mold inside the home. Does mold produce more when it's constantly humid? Like if we have a week or two of just humid weather, is that where it kind of lives and is going to continue to breed and grow? Or is with the weather fluctuations, is that more damaging specifically to mold?
I think it's more with the constant humidity and heat. Temperature definitely plays a role in it. And so we didn't list that as one of the main factors, but definitely the more conducive conditions of 70 degrees and above are going to contribute to its growth more than if you have the colder temperatures.
Interesting.
So, yeah, you're not going to have necessarily the active growth, maybe in a crawl space in the winter when it's 35 degrees outside. But it kind of remains dormant. And then when the heat cranks up and the humidity cranks up, then you can get more active growth again.
So I was just thinking about this as you're answering this question. So let's say it's the summertime. Well, it is, a hotter season now. And let's say our air conditioners are on and they're cranking. You talked about crawl spaces, but what about basements? Because if I go down to my basement, it's usually cooler than my main levels. Is mold going to grow upstairs where it's warmer and more humid, or is it going to grow downstairs in the basement where it's maybe a little more colder? Maybe it has more dust in the basement if I'm not using it as often. Do you have a stance on that? That's just a random question I thought of listening to you.
Yeah, no, I think it's more likely in the basement.
Okay.
Just because you have more, it just feels wetter down there.
Yep.
It's partly below ground. There's moisture against the walls. Just naturally, it has a little higher humidity down there. I have a walkout basement at my house, and we run, our central air almost year round in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that, I have a dehumidifier that I have to empty it every day.
Sure.
Because it's that much. And you can walk down there. If you don't run it for a few days, you can just feel the air.
Yeah.
It just feels wetter. And so that would be more conducive for mold growth than in the main level.
So we're talking about moisture in the home. We're talking about mold and mildew. I just learned today that mildew is on plants. I kind of feel like my teenagers that don't put away their clothes, mildew's growing on that, but you're now telling me that that's mold since those aren't plants, those are clothes.
Right.
What are some of the most common mold issues you're seeing right now? As we're recording this, we're the end of May, starting in June, but what are you seeing like right now as some of the bigger mold issues?
Yeah, I think the two places in a home that people don't go into are attics and crawl spaces. And so, there's a lot of slabs in Fort Wayne, so it doesn't apply there. But attics are the same way. You can have it kind of dormant, but then if you don't have the proper ventilation in an attic, and now it's real, it's 120 degrees up there, and it's just a perfect condition for things to grow. And so I think that's probably the top thing we see.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another thing that we see sometimes is folks are moving. They've moved all their appliances, their bedroom furniture, boxes, whatever, away from walls. They've moved out. And now we can sometimes see things on walls where that was setting against. And so there's a couple of ways to look at it with your house. That surface mold is usually just due to lack of airflow. And they move things away, and that's reasonable to just wipe that down with a proper cleaner and clean it, and you're done. The other type would be that comes from the outside in or from some kind of moisture source. And that is you have a crack in your wall and moisture seeping in, or it comes in or around a window and creates staining and whatnot. Now you have a bigger problem because you likely have mold on the backside of that drywall and in the wall cavity itself. And so that's not something we see a ton of. It's certainly what we're always looking for on inspections because, a typical home inspector is not necessarily qualified to identify mold, but they can identify things that would look like mold.
Sure.
and then leave that up to
Well,
somebody that could.
well, I feel like mold is like in that same category as radon, right? I mean, radon is a colorless, odorless gas that not many people know much about. Mold is something that we don't know much about, scientifically. I think most people don't. But when they hear it, they start to panic. How do you guys, when you're delivering a home inspection and you see it, how do you deliver that information that there is mold?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's really a topic that it can be contentious. It gets emotions riled up. Some people are much more allergic to it than others, and that's the difficulty in it. There's no set national standard on here's what the mold level should be, right? It's and that's because it's a function of your immune system,
Oh yeah.
how you react to it. And so when we see signs of it, we have to put it in perspective. And so, if you're on a new build and you're in the attic and you got significant mold growth in a new build, well, we got something going on here, right? We have a leaky roof, or the contractor forgot to cut out the ridge vent, and so we got no airflow or something like that. But I think it's important to explain to folks that are buying a house that even if you have mold, it's fixable. There's a myth out there that, oh, once you have mold, you're always going to have mold. That's simply not true. You can remove it, and as long as you take care of the conditions that created the problem, you shouldn't have a problem coming back with it coming back. We get a lot of times clients call us outside of a home inspection, and they're suffering health issues, and they've been told by somebody, possibly even the medical community, that, well, you must have mold in your house because you have mold in your bloodstream, and you've got to find the source of it. And so we get calls about, hey, I think I have it in my walls. You look the house, there's nothing visible. And if you don't have an active moisture source, there's no reason for it to be forming in your walls. Unless the construction of your house was so poor that whoever put in the moisture and vapor barriers did it backwards and it's trapping moisture in there, which is a possibility, but it's fairly highly unlikely.
Interesting.
And so we really have to put it in perspective, give them confidence. Health problems are real. We're not diminishing that at all. But for me to extrapolate that your health problem is caused because you potentially have a mold source here, that's just not something that we can do. And we're not trained to make that connection. I'm trained to look for mold, look for signs of mold. I'll ask them, have you had a water event in the last 6 months, year, whatever? If you have a water event, and what I mean by that is, let's say your upstairs bathroom tub overflows and runs through the ceiling and maybe down a wall or something, and you get out a couple of box fans and you try to dry that out and call it good, there's when you can run into a problem because you have not sufficiently dried that area out. And if you don't dry an area out after a significant water event like that, you can have problematic mold growth in 48 hours. So it doesn't take long for it to get going like that. And on the other hand, if you call in a company that can, they may have to punch some holes in the wall to get airflow up through it, pull up the carpet. If they can dry that out within 48 hours, typically a one-time water event is not going to create a mold problem in your house.
It's just over
So,
time. It's the weather, it's the humidity, and it's the water event. Let's say somebody. What would you recommend? And this may not be a direct question of mold. This is more of an inspection question. What would you recommend if somebody's maybe say 6 months to 12 months away from putting their home on the market and they maybe notice a water stain somewhere? What would be the first 2 or 3 steps that you would take to address that, making sure that there is no mold and making sure there's not a bigger plumbing issue?
yeah, that's a great question. First of all, confirm that the source of what created that is stopped. Is it just a is it just a leak through your plumbing vent flashing? We could seal that up. We can go in the attic and make sure it's not an ongoing issue. If it's in a basement, maybe you're under a bathroom or some appliances, that's more concerning
Mm-hmm.
because that could be an ongoing issue. The worst that I've seen is when you have insulation between the floors. Doesn't happen a lot,
Mm.
but instead of just drywall and an open space, they have insulation crammed in there. Any leak that has come through could potentially be just sitting there and it can't dry out. And so if they're getting ready to sell your house and you see water stains, We need to address why it's there and have an explanation for what happened there. Frequently on a home inspection, we will see water stains, and let's say we're inspecting it today. It's 80 degrees and sunny. We're going to write on it. We're going to check it with a moisture detector, but we're there 3 hours. We can't tell the history of this house. We can guess. We can have educated guesses, but we're going to say, have the seller provide proof of adequate repair regarding
Mhm.
this particular water stain. Look, that stain might have been there 10 years. It might have happened before this owner lived there. Um, and so I would say if you're getting ready to sell your house, look for stains, ensure that water sources are stopped, and then paint it,
Yep.
paint over them. That's not being dishonest at all. It's just eliminating a variable when you're selling your house.
One of the last questions, that's great advice. One of the last questions I have is when it comes to home inspections, maybe what's one story that opened your eyes with how serious mold is or how serious the consumer, reacts to mold? Do you have an inspection story from back when you got started, or is there a recent story? Why has mold become important and something that you guys address as a team?
Yeah, I think two quick stories. One, several years ago, a client was so medically affected by mold that they would book an inspection with us, but before we could inspect it, they had a specialized company come out that would test air quality in the ductwork under the slab. And if they were just like, if there was almost anything in there, they would just cancel the inspection and move on because they didn't even want to live there.
Wow.
And so that really highlighted to me how affected some people are by it. And then just a couple of years ago, they had that. There was a house with that water stain in the basement. We did the inspection. I didn't do it, but they called me out to evaluate it for a mold remediation. And I didn't think much of it. We see a lot of water stains, right?
Hmm.
It- Almost every house has a stain somewhere. And so I cut out a little square around the circle, and it was completely black on the top side. Cut out a little more, completely black. I ended up taking about a 6 by 8 foot chunk of drywall off of this basement. It was fully insulated. The rafters up or the floor joists above were completely black. The subfloor above that was black, and it all stemmed from a ice maker line leak behind a
Oh,
inside a wall
yep.
and under carpet. And so it was just a little thing. The mold test was off the charts, but again, there's no visible evidence. And so you got to follow the clues and try to ascertain what was the cause of all this. And it's one of those things we really train our guys. Look, we're not there to scare anybody. We just want to say, hey, here's what you have. Here's some steps you can do to clean it. And here's some things you can do to help prevent it from coming back.
Wow, that's great advice. I'm a survivor of a water line leak in a fridge that went down into the basement, and it got on our flooring. Flooring smelled bad from being in the basement, so we got new carpet in the basement, all because of the refrigerator, freezer, water line leak. So thanks for that, Jamie.
Well, yeah, and one quick tip is whenever you leave for an extended time,
Yeah.
turn your water
That
off.
that was it. Thank you for the advice today, Jamie. That could have helped 12 years ago when we had to replace our carpet. But you heard it here first. If you go on vacation, turn your water off so that there's no extra leaks, like what happened at the Noll's house. But Jamie, last before we wrap up here, let's talk to the people about Gold Key Home Inspections. Let's talk about what type of inspections you offer. So talk about your general inspection and kind of what you do for buyers.
Yeah, absolutely. When we do a home inspection, we're looking for health and safety concerns, structural problems, water penetration, insect damage, and just any system or component that's not working like it should. We're not there to just nitpick. We're not there to look at cosmetic problems. We're not there to, you know, we're there for 3 hours. You're going to find things when you move in that we may not call out, but we're going to find things that would be potentially devaluing to the house, be costly to fix, dangerous to your health. We're looking for the big stuff. We want to really educate you on your house, show you how to take care of things, show you some things to look for, give you some heads up of what's coming down the road, how old your major mechanicals are, and so forth. That's what we do for buyers. We also have, just for homeowners in general, we can do maintenance inspections. And this is just quite kind of a quick and dirty inspection. We come once a year. We're there for maybe an hour, hour and a half, and we're checking the major components that folks typically don't see. You don't usually go on your roof. You don't usually go in the attic. That's where a lot of problems start, right? We just talked about moisture intrusion. Well, it starts up there or the basement. And so we're going to look at some main things and give you a report every year. It helps you to keep your house maintained, and that helps resale value. You go to sell that thing 5 years down the road, you've got 5 reports that show this happened, I fixed this, I did this. And it just shows that you care about your home and you care about making it the best that it can be.
Yeah, that's great. When we are working with our buyers, we cover the 3 main topics of a home inspection. There's major defects, there's maintenance or deferred maintenance, and then there's cosmetic issues. And when we're negotiating, in the middle of negotiations, the buyer has the right to ask for anything to be repaired that the seller has maybe either deferred or has any damages to the home. The seller then only really has to address the major defects. So you put together a long 30, 40, 50 page report that, in my opinion, is great for home buyers so that they can be confident homeowners as they move into this home. So great job with that. I think that's very helpful. People need to use that report as knowledge and information and not just ammunition when it comes to negotiating against the seller. Jamie, last thing, let's talk about if you're somebody that's thinking about putting your home on the market and you want to do a pre-listing inspection, what does that look like?
Yeah, pre-listing is real similar to an inspection for the buyer. We're going to change some of the wording on it because, you're the one that already owns it. But it's a great way to get ahead of a potential issue, especially if it's an estate, especially if you haven't had any, has some deferred maintenance. Maybe there's some bigger issues. We all know that real estate transactions can get kind of emotional. And this is a way to get ahead of the emotion. You find out, hey, you got some repairs needed on your roof here. You got a leak here or whatever it is. You got a family of raccoons in your attic. You have the opportunity to call who you want in your time frame to get that stuff taken care of before you're in the heat and the timing of a real estate transaction. So highly advisable, especially in a home that has some age to it.
If I was selling my home today, Jamie, I would hire you guys to do a listing inspection, and I would take that inspection report. I would look at anything that I would feel or deem as major. I would make sure I get those items fixed, and then I would attach that listing, that pre-listing inspection to the listing, so that would-be buyers could see that along with the repairs that I've already made. That's what I would do to be a confident home seller in this case. Last thing, let's talk about this. You and I have been brainstorming on this idea for a long time. I've had you guys out to my home multiple times, and I've lived there for 18 years. So talk about, how often should people be doing, let's just say, preventative maintenance inspections, or if you want to call them maintenance inspections, how often should people have a home inspector in their home?
I say every year. This started really, you had brought this topic up for homes that you have sold. But in my own life, I got a text one day several years ago from my son of a water stain on my bathroom ceiling. And he's like, whoa, what's this? And it's like, I don't know. Well, I tell everybody else what to do, but I don't inspect my own house. And so long story short, I had one popped nail on my roof. It come up through the shingles and it had leaked evidently for a few years. It had gone through 12, 15 inches of insulation and stained my bathroom ceiling. That could have all been prevented by having a maintenance inspection, finding, hey, you got some popped nails here. Let's get these resealed so you don't have water coming in. We're just fortunate it didn't happen in a wall, which could have created moldy conditions. So preventative maintenance inspections, I would suggest every year. It's going to be a reduced fee. It's going to be a shorter time frame. We can schedule around your schedule to a degree. And it just gives you satisfaction that the big things in your house are being taken care of. And they're not going to lead to even a bigger problem down the road. Maybe a bird's come in and tore apart your exhaust fan. Well, instead of exhausting hot, humid air into the attic now, we can fix that ductwork before it becomes a big problem. Things happen. We're in a fight against nature and the climate. So get a preventative maintenance inspection every year, and it's going to help you maintain that quality of your house.
Absolutely. And one of the last things that I want to add here is, the reason that our team believes we are called to be real estate advisors is because it's a holistic approach. We want to talk about your debt to income ratio and make sure you don't overspend on a home so that you can get a maintenance checklist, so that you can keep your home in good shape, so that you have discretionary income to go ahead and put money towards the things that need to keep your home in tip-top shape. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to be a confident homeowner, keep your home in great condition, you're going to end up selling it for more money down the road. And all of us want to keep more money in our pocket. And by doing that is making sure that you buy a home that's within your threshold of debt to income ratio. Make sure you maintain it, get inspections, and keep it in great shape. And then you'll be able to sell it for more money down the road.
That's why you're the best. Your team really values that relationship with buyers, and you guys do an awesome job of covering all the bases to make sure it's the house that works for them.
Absolutely. Well, we make a great team. Jamie, thank you so much for being on here. Any last minute comments today on Gold Key inspections or mold, or it's golfing season now that it's hot and humid out?
No, it's just a lot more enjoyable to inspect houses when it's 75 and 80 and not 55 and 40. But no, we just love what we do. We have a lot of fun with it. We really we hire guys that value building that relationship with buyers on the inspection, and we're there to serve them. You have to have a servant mentality to do this job well day after day, and that's what we want to do. And we just love what we do.
Well, keep up the good work. Thank you for serving our clients at a high level. If you're going to be a home buyer of ours, it'd be great for you to meet Gold Key and Jamie and his team. If you're a seller and you want to know more about getting a maintenance inspection, reach out to us. We'd love to help you. But our ultimate goal is to help reduce your stress. And by getting these inspections, it will do that, helping you save time, making sure that we can catch these early, and then ultimately helping you keep as much money in your pocket. Let's get ahead of this so that way you can prevent major problems in the future. Jamie, thanks for being a guest today on Moving Forward, Wayne.
Glad to do it anytime. Thanks, Brad.
Bye.